We are recording. Brandon, give us the intro.
We're live and yeah, whatever. What up? It's another episode of the Rap Hop Podcast brought to you by Matt and Brandon. We are here. We're doing it. We're live.
We are live from Forestville, California. Look it up. Google us.
I've probably heard of San Francisco. Maybe you've heard of Guerneville. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like the closest one. Yeah, another red flag warning week. How is it treating you?
To be honest, pretty good. I haven't really had to, be too aware or like have to worry about it too much where I'm at.
Did you sleep with all the wind last night?
Yeah, I slept pretty good, actually.
Same. I like the wind. I know it's not good for fire weather, but I still like to listen to it.
I prefer rain over wind. Maybe that's because from when I played soccer, I would much rather play in the rain than in the wind.
Man, I ran cross country and I hated running in the rain. Everyone lived for it, but it's not me. It's not me.
You're an interesting dude.
No, I'm not. I'm a great.
You know who else is interesting?
Who? Black Thought?
Black Thought.
Wow.
We're covering today.
Okay. Black Thought, Streams of Thought, Volume 3. Cain
and Abel.
Cain and Abel.
So this is the third volume in the Streams of Thought series, and it's the only one that has a title to it. Mm-hmm. The rest of them are the other two are just Streams of Thought 1 and 2. And those are both EPs. This one is the only one that's a full-length album.
I actually just caught all that today. I was like, I wonder why this one's considered an album. And I think it's
It has to do with the minutes.
I feel like this one was, I'd have to recheck, because this one was 38 minutes.
Yeah.
And I thought the second one was longer.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
There's a designation, I don't remember what it is, but in order for it to be considered an LP over an EP, it has to be, I don't know, over like 30 minutes or something like that. Something around there makes it an LP as opposed to an EP.
Okay.
So with the title and the name and the length of the album, you think you're coming into a little bit more fleshed out concept or something more going on than his previous two solo projects were. For the most, yes, he's working with a single producer on those as well, Ninth Wonder and Salam Remy. And those, he's just barring out for the whole EP. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much, all those songs. And they're amazing. I loved both of them. I was a little bit let down by the production on Ninth Wonder's Streams of Thought. I think I'm just used to Ninth Wonder's soul production, and he didn't do that at all, so it kind of put me off. But still, Black Thought's rhyming was amazing.
I feel like there's times with Black Thought where I feel that I'm not picking up things that I should, which is often the case with him, for me.
Right.
And I feel like, I don't know, that I'm not getting it. And I get frustrated. Yeah. Because, he'll be going off, when I was reading the lyrics for this one, he'll be going off. He has, let's say he has, 16 bars. By the first, 8 or 9, I'm like, okay, this is just an intro, where are we going? But then you have to, really, when you read the lyrics, you're like, okay, this is actually, a double entendre. This means something else, or...
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to Black Thought, and that's one of the reasons why this. I think this was a few years ago. I wrote an online article for a friend. I did a list of the top 25 rappers of all time, and I had to pick a rapper, and then I wrote an excerpt underneath them of why I put them in that place, and I put Black Thought as number 1 of all time, and I put Eminem as number 2. And the reason why I did that, and it came down to a simple factor: Black Thought's never spit a whack verse, a whack line, a whack rhyme. He's never put out a whack project. He's never done anything to question his artistic ability. Mm-hmm. Whereas every other artist on the list, yes, they may be great MCs and they may put out great music, but there's times in their career where they didn't make great music. Mm-hmm. And you could say that about every rapper. I can't say that about Black Thought.
It's fun because I remember that article. I remember just making fun of you because of the heat on it.
I definitely let you in on the shit I was getting because it was on Twitter and My friend tagged me on it, and I was getting death threats for at least a couple months after I posted that.
You were getting some heat, but to be honest with you, like I don't really agree with a lot of the criticism. I just, anytime I can jump in on making fun of you, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But one of the criticisms I did see, and I thought was kind of a good point, was that they were saying that Black Thought hadn't produced an album, like a solo album, though.
Right.
So they were kind of like, in comparison to all these other artists.
It's similar to Andre 3000. Some people will say, well, you can't put Andre 3000 up there because he doesn't have a solo project. Whereas for me, with Black Thought and the Roots, yes, there were other MCs in the group, like Malik B. Rest in peace. He just passed away earlier this year. But he wasn't the focal point. Black Thought led those songs. He wasn't splitting a lot of those songs. They were just him rapping. And then Malik B would show up on a few.
I think there's a couple factors why people would argue with you. Maybe it's because, like, if you're in a group setting and you're putting out an album, like, there's kind of a collaborative thought that goes into the track. But what I think benefits you is that the article, I think, could age well, because now that he has dropped a couple things.
Yeah, this is before he put out any.
Exactly.
I think this is 2016 or 17.
If not a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But now that he's dropped some things and people are like now, listening to him beforehand, now having some solo work, I feel like it kind of fits. I'd have to read what you wrote, but I'm sure it would fit in with the 3 albums that he dropped.
Right. And I think I was justified. I mean, me personally, obviously I wrote it, but I still feel like I'm justified with just going off his Roots albums that he could be the #1 MC. Because you can also take his features that he's done throughout the years. But those Roots albums aren't the same without Black Thought. You know what I mean? You take Black Thought out of the equation and you plug another MC in there. I don't think the Roots are where they are today. And Black Thought's proved himself time and again. Because what's dope about Black Thought, which you get more on this Streams of Thought 3 compared to the other two, is he can make songs. He's not just a rapper. He has plenty of songs with the Roots that are great, just songs in general. They're not just showcasing his rapping ability. You got songs, with Jill Scott. What's the song? Like clock, hands with no clocks. One of those songs. I don't know. He's got so many with the Roots, that the Seed 2.0, that are great songs, and they have hooks and melodies and things like that. So I think Black Thought can do it all. I think he's not one dimensional.
He's not. And I think what's really cool about him is I thought he is very poetic in the way that he drops his bars and just like the way that he rhymes. He makes total sense. He stays on point. I really like that about him. I feel like if I couldn't understand English, but I could hear the rhyming of stuff, I would still be very much like, oh, this is cool to listen to, even if I can't understand it.
Right. Yeah, and he's extremely intelligent. Just the way, if you watch one of his interviews, just the way that he speaks is very intelligent. And you can tell he has a lot of wisdom behind what he says. So I always enjoy listening to him. And of course, we have to reference the 10-minute freestyle he did on Flex. If you haven't watched that, go watch that on YouTube. He goes off for 10 minutes straight on a freestyle.
That's like one of the things that alone should get you into what he has to say.
Yeah, you listen to that. If you watch the whole video through, you'll be speechless afterward. You don't even know what to think. You'll just be like, that's not even human, what he just did. It's pretty incredible. And he's accomplished. I mean, he's done so many things. He's been rapping since 1993, 94, and he's been putting out dope projects.
I didn't realize that the Roots had so many albums. Like when you talk to people, they'll say, Phrenology and what's the one with the black and white covered album with the women running because of something happening? Shit.
Not Phrenology.
It's the one before Phrenology. I can't believe
I got over. Or Things Fall Apart.
Things Fall Apart. Thank you. Like those are the only two that Things Fall Apart.
Barely. What's crazy is they have organics. Like all their earlier albums are great. The Tipping Point's great. They have so many great albums. The one that really captured me was How I Got Over. That one didn't. I remember I bought the CD. This is 2007 or 8. I think 8. That I bought the CD. It was in my car for at least over a year. Like it never left my CD player. I played that over and over. I remember that summer I played it driving to the beach back and forth in LA, just nonstop. I love that album.
I got into the Roots because when I was finally fed up with the radio and everything, if I noticed in retrospect, if you look on top underground albums, Things Fall Apart is in the top 3.
Yeah.
And probably like 8 out of 9 things that you'll find online. So I was like, okay, I've seen this over and over. I'll just go out and get it. I actually I wasn't too in love with Things Fall Apart. It'd be interesting for me to listen to it now, though. I'm wondering if things would change. But then I got Phrenology, and I was like, okay, this one's cool. I like this. So yeah, I've
and they're more recent projects like Undone is amazing. It's a story-based album that's pretty incredible. They have so many great albums, and we have a few that are on our list. So I'm sure we'll get to more Roots albums later on.
Yeah.
So what was your introduction to Black Thought and the Roots? Was it listening to the album that you just mentioned?
Yeah, that was kind of it right there, was with Things Fall Apart. Like I was saying.
So that was your first time. You hadn't heard any of their singles or songs on the radio or anything like that?
No, but I mean, I don't think ever. But I think that one song with Erykah Badu, I'd heard that one. And I'm sure I'd heard other stuff, but like I really wanted to give it a deep listen.
Got Me?
You Got Me, yeah. Thanks. But yeah, that's when I kind of got into them. And did they do... Well, no. Questlove was on Chappelle's show. And so I remember that back in 2003 when he came on there. When he was on that skit with John Mayer. And
that's a great skit.
That's a great skit.
So. Yeah, and obviously when we do a Roots album, we'll get more into Questlove and all the other members of the Roots and Scott Storch. They have a storied past in hip hop. You know, they're a huge influence, especially as being pretty much the only well-known hip hop band. And they've crossed over. Obviously, they're on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, which is incredible. I just never looked at... You said underground, and I honestly didn't look at them as an underground group. They're signed to Def Jam. Like, they're on a major label. Maybe they made music that appealed to a lot of underground fans, but I never really considered them underground.
I would think by definition they aren't underground. I think that helped me in my search, though, because it's basically people that aren't mainstream is what I was looking for.
Gotcha.
And so by putting that in or whatever I was putting in, that's what would come
If you
up.
listen to artists similar to Roots, it's mostly gonna be underground artists. I can see that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got in. Sounds like you got in from a while from their dropping albums.
Pretty early on. I remember really loving The Seed 2.0 as a kid. I remember hearing that song when I think in middle school. And I never really when I was in high school, I listened to the Roots a lot, but it was more of I would pick out songs that I loved.
That's kind of how
I wasn't digging too deep and listening to their full albums and really getting into it. I didn't do that until later on. I think when I was in college, I went back. I was okay, let me go back and actually listen to all their albums in full and understand what kind of group they are. Yeah, but I've always loved Black Thought. Anytime he's featured on a song, I want to hear it. He's that kind of artist for me, where he may be featured with an artist that I'm not really a fan of, but I'm going to listen to it anyway because he's on it.
Yeah, I feel that. Every feature that he's on, he's great. And then also when people feature on his music, they really stepped their game up. So it's Streams of Thought 1, Styles P. Yeah. He upped his bars up. Schoolboy Q in this album, he upped his bars up.
That's an ongoing, discussion on hip hop Twitter is, has anyone ever out-rapped Black Thought?
No.
And yeah, there's very few times. For me, you're going to laugh, but I think Blue out-rapped him on How I Got Over on both tracks. But
you need to get Blues Nick off your breath, man.
Hey, man, the facts are facts.
What song was that?
He's on 2 songs with on that album.
And Blue out-rapped him both times?
Yeah, I rapped him on both.
Nah, I'm about to take a listen to that.
Yeah, take a listen.
I will. I'm sure it will be.
There was a reason why Blue was recruited to be on that album.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you think Blue out-rapped him on that track, on those tracks. So, I don't know. I'll have to take a listen to that. But I mean, until I hear those so far, and I mean, I'd be confident saying that any songs that I haven't heard that someone hasn't out-rapped him on that. But right. I mean, he's a lyrical wordsmith, as Kanye would say.
He's like a Elzai, and he's like a Royce, and he's like a King Crooked. They're
like him.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's a better way of putting it. He's mastered the art of lyricism, is how I would describe him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think he did it first because, I mean, I'm thinking of, Royce. I feel like Royce picked up with Bad Meets Evil, and that's where, like, at least for me, my intro to him of where he turned that.
Well, of course, and there's lyricists before Black Thought. I mean, you have to mention Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, Nas. They came before him and set the stage. But I do feel like Black Thought took it to a different level.
A different level first.
Not before Rakim, Big Daddy Kane. They're doing it in the 80s.
Not at this level, though.
But that's what I'm saying. Is they set the stage for lyricism. Rakim was the first rapper to be doing entendres and rhyme schemes and making the lyrics more complex. And what I'm saying is Black Thought took that and raised the bar.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. But you're saying Black Thought did it first. And I'm like, he didn't do it first.
Raise the bar first. So you're just saying what I'm saying.
I guess.
It's all good.
No, I just want you to. I'm just trying to make sure you give your respects to Rakim, God MC.
I didn't take anything away from him. There's nothing to give if I didn't take it away. So, well, man. Before we jump in, I was curious, as always, with with album titles and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I want to see how they relate. So I'm gonna read this short little thing from Wiki about Cain and Abel because I'm not religious. I know you have 2 biblical names back to back, but I do not. So in the biblical book of Genesis, Cain and Abel are the first 2 sons of Adam and Eve. Cain, the firstborn, was a farmer, and his brother Abel was a shepherd. The brothers made sacrifices to God, each of his own produce, but God favored Abel's sacrifice instead of Cain's. Cain then murdered Abel, whereupon Yahweh punished Cain by condemning him to a life of wandering. Cain then dwelt with the land of Nod, wandering, where he built a city and fathered the line of descendants beginning with Enoch. So,
that's the biblical story
of Cain and Abel. Mm-hmm. And so, I think we could touch back on this here and there as we go through the album. Because I think after reading that the first time, I feel like it made sense for how I interpreted the album, I think.
Gotcha.
But we'll see.
It's definitely a strong album title. Mm-hmm. Most people, a lot of people are religious and they know the story of Cain and Abel. And they know it's a story that revolves around jealousy and resentment and murder. So there's a big things to center your album around if you're doing that.
But it's kind of like a blanket theme where I would feel knowing that he's going to touch on political and like stuff that's like current events. I would feel confident knowing what Cain and Abel is and knowing like, okay, he's got a lot to work with that blanket. Right. So like,
it's a reference point. I think. I don't think it's a concept that he's working with.
No, I don't think so.
This is not a Cain and Abel concept album.
No, definitely. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a little strong for what the album actually is. For the title. In my opinion.
I might change my mind on that by the end, but let's see.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Let's get into it. Before we get into it, I want to thank all of our listeners out there. If you're listening on Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Apple, we appreciate you. We appreciate all of our new listeners. If you are a new listener, welcome. Glad you could join us. Also want to remind everyone that for the most part, all the albums that we cover on this podcast are chosen at random off of a list, except for new albums like this one. We agreed to do it. So maybe your favorite album will come up soon. Just got to check back here, or hit us up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Let us know an album that you would want us to cover, and we'll put it on the list, and hopefully it comes up soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm definitely down to take a look at what people suggest. See if I'm...
And we're open to anything. As you see, if you take a look back at all the episodes we've done, there's no area of hip-hop that we wouldn't touch. We'll do anything.
Almost anything.
Anything. I mean, I don't know if I'll do like Lil Pump or something, but...
No, we got to do that. I just meant like, because I was recently watching The Boys, and they were playing some French rap in the background. I was like, well, then that's a lot of translating. Well, okay. I'm not down for that. But.
Actually, I actually listen to a lot of French hip-hop, and I know some dope French hip-hop that we could do.
You could do. I'll film you.
They have dope beats. That's mainly what I care about.
They did.
Yeah.
They do have some dope beats.
So yeah, with that said, let's jump into the first track on this album.
Not Crazy, First Contact.
First Contact, the intro.
And this one I don't know, I thought I saw a lot of concepts in this. Relating Cristopher Columbus coming to America, discovering the Native Americans, and kind of this made up dialogue by Black Thought of like, hey, what are you guys? And yeah, we're human beings. And it's like, oh,
well, it's not made up dialogue though.
I mean
it's
that
an
by
excerpt from John Trudell talking about. He's a Native American. He's an author. He's talking about the story of Columbus discovering America.
I don't think it was. I guess I said that because I don't imagine someone being like, "Hey, what are you guys?" and then respond like, "Hey, we're human beings."
Oh, right. You don't think that was an actual?
No, I'm being literal about the conversation.
Right. Gotcha.
So kind of like adding that.
No, that didn't happen.
But even though that may not have happened word for word, it's kind of a way of looking at, well, I'm about to conquer your ass. I'm about to do some things. Like I don't see you guys as human beings. I don't see you guys as equal, and I'm going to do some work.
And but he didn't say that. It was more of.
But that's what happened. That's what I'm.
That's what happened. But I also look at it as, okay, the Native Americans looked at the Columbus and whatever that came. Where are they from? Spain. That came to Americas, and they asked who the Native Americans were, and in their minds they're thinking like, what nationality are you? And Native Americans, we're not a nation. We're just humans. We don't own any land. We're not part of any country. We just are who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's a really interesting concept to bring forth to this. And what Black Thought's trying to say is, if you can relate that to Cain and Abel, it's, we're all brothers. As human beings, we all come from the same place. We're all related in some way. So them coming in and murdering their brothers, or in other words, Native Americans, why? Where does that come from? Why do you just come there and murder and take over and conquer?
And that's where he was saying too that, Christopher Columbus coming from a European background of conquering and stuff like that. And I think he referred to it as a virus, of bringing that virus over to the Americas and spreading that and doing what ended up happening. I like the line, "Go to war when peaceful solution's impossible. A mountain is not to be confused with an obstacle." And
that's a great line.
Trying to remember the thoughts when I first heard that, of just like people seeing kind of this false thing of, okay, this just isn't going to work, so we're going to have to just go forth and do what we know best,
right?
Because there's no other solution when there was. And then kind of like a third point on that is bringing in police brutality in America after that. And kind of, someone could be doing their own thing and enforcement comes in and is like escalating something to where another solution could have been provided and something else could have happened.
And that's an actual recording of Sean C. It's from his phone. So Sean C. produced this whole project. We'll get into him a little bit later, but so that's an actual recording. He was walking in New York on the way to his studio or leaving his studio, and he ran into a cop trying to arrest this guy and using excessive force. So Sean C. started recording it and yelling at the cop to let him go or to whatever, stop doing what he's doing. But yeah, it is an interesting thing. It's another form of conquering on a small scale, of conquering another human, not treating other humans as humans, which you could also relate to the Cain and Abel story in some way.
Yeah, I think there's elements that like draw from Cain and Abel. I think what you were saying earlier, like that one hadn't crossed. It was stuff later on in the album that I was thinking of Cain and Abel. But like the part of like, we're all brothers here from the same creator,
right?
Yeah.
But then Black Thought's verse, I mean, it goes into battle raps. Establishing how great he is and who he is and how he's not to be messed with. And
you're talking about the state prisoner?
No, just even in this. And in the intro, he says, "The return of the prodigal sire accountable for making remarks remarkable. I hear some artists withdrew and I was responsible. A vessel partial for sending the holy gospel through." And, he's basically saying, he's responsible for rappers, standing down. Or not wanting to rap with him, and stuff like that. So he's establishing his place on this album and who he is and how he's at the top of his game.
Yeah, and he goes into that a couple times during the album too, of like just there's a track where he's like gone from squire to sire and stuff, and just you get a really good feel of transcendence and growth and evolution, which I feel like I've said on other pods, but same here. But going into State Prisoner, I feel from this album, there's kind of this ground up, from the ground to the top kind of building of like knowing where he came from and how rough it was, and then where he is today and the knowledge he's gained from that. But then also this song with State Prisoner kind of embodying like everyone else's position, or not position, but kind of taking in what everyone else is going through. So it's like kind of coming from the mind of the state prisoner, and not like necessarily a prisoner of like a penitentiary or anything, but like within the state of mind, the state of affairs, everything, right. Kind of a prisoner.
Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it. I mean, I love this song. The beat goes hard. Even the second beat even goes really hard. I love the beat switch. And he just going in on this. He's spitting crazy shit. He said, "I represent the unwanted, undesired. Wash my hands of it all, then raised one and testified. To lyrical manslaughter, I'm guilty, but justified." But, it's lyrical manslaughter, I'm guilty, but justified. Like, that's a fucking great line. There's a lot, there's entendres in there. And yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, he's just spitting on this. I fucking love his flow on this. It's incredible. It gets me hyped up.
Yeah, especially the first beat. The first beat I feel like gets you hyped, and then like once you're like, I don't know, it's all up there. You're kind of like it brings you back down to like, all right, listen to what I have to say. I'm about to deliver you some knowledge and stuff like that. But I just like how this track just embodies just kind of like the odds against you. It's like the line that you referenced earlier. But it's like the odds were against me, but I didn't let it become a factor, and here I am delivering this and everything, and just putting people to shame. And
I like that he's confident. He's very aware that he's known as one of the best MCs, but he doesn't. He's definitely part of that era of hip hop where no matter what, you believe in yourself to be the best, and you're ready to go to war at any time. And so he's almost talking himself up like, oh, yeah, I'm prepared to go to war. If any MC wants to come at me, I'm ready. And that's just his attitude, and that's the era that he comes from. So any top lyricist, like we mentioned, an Eminem or a King Crooked, Royce, Pusha T, those kind of rappers, they will go after you if you come after them. They won't shy from any kind of battle.
Oh yeah, unlike Drake,
which I love that energy. You know what I mean?
Drake, who kind of backs down and inadvertently will come back at you, or someone else will name drop.
Yeah, and he's not going to be subliminal about it. And I don't think Black Thought's ever been involved in a rap beef, but I would love to.
Would
see
you
that
beef with him?
No, I don't think anyone would. Because I don't think he would stop. I think he would go for 10 minutes straight.
Shit. Yeah, I wouldn't want someone putting
he would not.
At that level, putting on a 10-minute track on me, there's no way.
Yeah, I could see it. I would love for someone to try it.
Yeah, I don't need a 10-minute track.
But at the same time, he wouldn't go after a Lil Pump or something. You know what I mean? It'd have to be someone on his level that he would go after. Because I feel like he's so wise. He's like that wise, kung fu master. He won't even fight you unless you're worthy of a fight.
Yeah, and he's going to pick you apart at each move that you make and really make you feel kind of insignificant.
Right.
I wouldn't want to. I'm not going to diss him.
Yeah, I mean, here he says, "Me and the best producers out again, en route again. Airborne audio spores. It's like an allergen. So in conclusion, I want to clear the confusion. Any rumors the artist you're currently hearing is human." Like, that rhyme scheme is insane, and then he's just saying, I'm not human, I'm beyond everyone else.
That's how a lot, so like going to Good Morning, that's kind of how, like, talking too long to make like a really small point, I can do that sometimes. But like, that's how I felt at the beginning of this track too, where I was like, wait, I feel like I just missed a bunch of shit.
Right.
And actually my first note on this one was like, I have to admit that I'm not picking up on this track. But then as I kept reading it over and over, I read it over like 4 or 5 more times, and I was like, okay, this is actually making more sense.
Right.
I have to slow it down. But like, he's kind of talking about coming from Philly, kind of just having this rough exterior, not being afraid.
Right.
Just one of those people that's like, yo, if you start something, I will end it, and I have no problem doing that. You definitely get the feel that he's a product of his environment.
Right.
And I like how he's talking about people kind of running with, Lucifer's always on watch. He's kind of influencing people, but like God is going to have to, he uses the term encore performance, because if you believe in God and that's who's saving you, he's going to have to keep repeating this performance to protect all these people from all this stuff that's happening in his environment. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a dope track. We were talking about this track earlier before we started recording, and I definitely mentioned that I think Swizz Beatz is completely unnecessary on this song. Like, take him off, please.
It's a small dose. He's fine.
But there's no purpose. It doesn't add value. Like, he's not producing on it. So.
Oh, he didn't. Okay, I just realized that. Yeah, he didn't produce it.
Yeah. So why is he on there?
Say good morning.
I don't know. But anyway, it's a dope song. I love the beat.
I think it's my favorite track on the album.
I read a little interview that Black Thought did, and he kind of added some things to think about this song that gave it some levels to it, with having Killer Mike and Pusha T as features, where he said, on any given day, the space that I occupy in the world is somewhere between a Killer Mike and a Pusha T, between an activist and a street hero, a man of the people and a man of the streets. And I really like the way he chose those features and placed himself in between them. You got Pusha T doing coke raps and he's from the streets. You got Killer Mike, who's very much an activist and does a lot of work for his community, and helps with businesses and is involved in politics. And Black Thought, it perfectly fits in between that.
Did you think that, I forget what the line was, but it's either Black Thought or Killer Mike. They kind of make a stab at like the, what is that term? Kind of the things materialistic things that you don't really need. You feel like Pusha T kind of embodies that though. And that
he
it kind of
does
contradicts the song.
He does to a degree, I think. but I think Pusha T's aware of that, and I'm sure Pusha T does plenty of outreach and community work. We just don't hear about it.
For sure. But I mean, but his brand is basically off of like, hey, I moved bricks. Right. And now I am where I am.
Now, so he started off his verse with, I got 4 million in 3 different houses.
Yeah.
But this is like Killer Mike says, while these chump rappers rap about the city they cop, about the shit they cop, man, I caught my block and that shit don't stop. I'm the unofficial mayor of my city. Learned my lesson from the crack trap in school of high thoughts. Push the D like Pusha T and kept my mind black thought.
That's the beginning of that line was what I was thinking of. Because like Pusha T is basically, talking about capitalizing.
But he ain't a chump rapper, so.
He's what?
He's not a chump rapper.
No, so he's not, but like, it's still like, he's talking about the shit that he cops, but like, this is what we're like not rolling with at the same time. Right. But I mean, maybe it just adds more angles to the track. Mm-hmm. But like, I liked his line, bulletproof package, like I'm the POTUS. I'm just cashing in on what they owe us. And I think that kind of, to answer my own question, mm-hmm. I interpreted that as him saying like, with the crack pandemic, with everything that the government has done against us, I'm going to use that to my advantage since we aren't getting reparations and try to live the best life that I can.
Right.
So that's kind of what I tried to turn that into. I mean, I don't know if it's to fit my narrative though. I have to say I really like Killer Mike's whole just presence in general, but especially on this song.
Yeah, he has an amazing voice.
And the other thing that he adds to this song is that he touches on how blacks were kings back in the day and how every point in time they were doing something great, but then someone else came along and kind of took credit or took that away from them. Mm-hmm. And so his line that I really liked was, how you a product of God and you worship a man. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like, damn, like that's... Right. I don't know, I think of like today's current political climate of just looking at someone to have the answers and worshiping them in some other way. And that could be an athlete. It doesn't even have to be a political person.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think one of the issues young people have in our, maybe not even young people, everyone has in our society today,
I would say everyone,
is we idolize celebrities mm-hmm. and musicians and athletes. Idolizing other humans is a dangerous game, I think, mm-hmm. because they will let you down. They will prove to be not human and do evil things or, not live up to what you think they are in your own head. Because we don't know them. We don't know these celebrities. We don't know who they are behind the camera, mm-hmm. beyond in their regular lives. And then it comes out all the time about certain celebrities being, whatever discretion they've done in the past, whether they raped someone or they killed someone or they, whatever, that comes out and then it shocks us and we're like, oh my God, how could they do that? Or at the other side, we idolize them so much that we don't believe it. And we're like, mm-hmm. there's no way they could do that. Mm-hmm. Where's the proof? So I think it's such a dangerous game to idolize other people, especially if you're someone who believes in God and believes in religion. You shouldn't not be anywhere near idolizing people just because of their status in society, that they have money or they've accomplished something worthwhile of idolizing. It's like, no, they're still human. They're still a person that, yes, they may be successful, but that doesn't mean I have to, idolize them.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We could go on and on about that. I mean, it's really powerful lines from Killer Mike.
Mm-hmm. And I think this track was where I was starting to see Cain and Abel, at least in the reference that I read from Wikipedia, mm-hmm. of like, Killer Mike talking about, if we were gods once upon a time, we're over here, we're Cain, and we're making we're making sacrifices, we're putting in our work, and then there's Abel, he's doing his thing, but then one person's favored over the other. Right. That's kind of where I began to see that. And I don't know if you could say Pusha T just like capitalizing off of those sacrifices and that work that you're putting in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think from Killer Mike's verse, that's where I first started seeing it. But then also like just, and this kind of segues into the next track too, but just kind of like, I don't know, accepting your own worth and acknowledging that you have something, you have value in everything.
Yeah.
So in Magnificent, he starts talking about like a kind of, just to sum up the whole, not the whole song, but most of it, but he kind of alludes to like an evolution, an awakening, and a transition. And I liked how he talks about going from like basically from a poet to a monarch, I think is what he said in that song. And just going from like saying things that have meaning, but then getting some ground and you know, doing stuff, which is kind of similar to the I don't remember the name, but the Hajj al-Malik el-Shabazz, which I totally butchered. That's in reference to Malcolm X. That's his name that he chose after he converted to Islam, and which is interesting. So I read the biography of Malcolm X last year. So I forget his actual name, but then when the Nation of Islam, when you realize that like, hey, we're taken away from people and given the last names of our slaves, that's where the X comes in. So they adopt X because it's like, well, I'm not going to be Johnson. I'm not going to be Real. I'm not going to be Goodman. Like, I'm going to be X. My last name was taken from me. I don't know where my roots are, so I'm taking X. And then eventually adopting a name and stuff like that. So I got from the book. It was really interesting. I'd suggest reading it. But yeah, just talking about the hunger to get signed and relay that sermon and get that stuff out. And yeah, just relating to himself, he realizes that he's magnificent. He has value. He has worth.
Yeah, this is a great song. I mean, it's 3 verses of fire. He doesn't let up. And I love his flow on this. And one of my favorite lines on here is, the Lord take away the same thing he giveth us. Temptation, do not lead. Please deliver us. When you a beast, you kind of cease to give a fuck. You know, he does deal with temptation, and he deals with all the same things we do, but he realizes his worth and becomes a beast. And then when you get to that level, you don't give a fuck about a lot of things. You don't give a fuck about following people or about doing what's cool or just trying to fit in. You just do yourself. And once you do that, once you're on your own path, you become magnificent. You ascend to a different level when you are not worried about, keeping up with others. Falling into temptation.
And I kind of want to play devil's advocate in a way where, like, even if you're kind of a piece of shit and like you have a platform and you're spewing a bunch of nonsense, like there is a magnificence in the way that you were able to acquire that following and do that. As we grow the pod, like that's a hard thing to do is to like get your content out there and get followers and everything.
Right.
But Jim Jones and whoever else, they all did it. So there is
I mean, we could reference Tekashi 6ix9ine, for doing exactly that. It was pure, clownery. It was pure just doing stuff for attention and doing controversial things and stirring up, shit. But as you learn that you're gonna shine really bright, really quick, and then you're gonna crash and burn, and that's just inevitable when you're doing antics like that. But if you stay true to yourself, it's not about ascending. It's not about being the brightest that you can be and getting the most attention. It's about staying true to yourself and just being who you are.
And I think that basically sums up Experience, the next track. I mean, I come from a place of experience, you know what I mean? Bobby Womack told me once, you got to go through it to get to it.
Yep.
And then they keep referencing you got to go through it. And I think that to feed into that, like this whole album is a lot of experience. A lot of, when we did Saw Rock, she's going through a lot of her experiences. And like, it's not really anything you can just read up on and enact it. Like, you really have to go through something. And then acquire that confidence and really sell it. And then that's where people come with you. Like, okay, I resonate with that. I'll follow you a little bit.
Yeah. And, Black Thought's had a lot of experience. I think this gets brought up later in the album, if we've already missed it. But both of his parents were murdered when he was young. His dad
murdered at 1
when he was 1, and then his mom was murdered when he was in high school.
Which is I didn't know that until earlier. That's crazy.
And he didn't really mention it for most of his career. He didn't really talk about it. It's only on this album he's mentioned. I think in the last Streams of Thoughts he started opening up about it, and just dealing with that. And and he did deal crack when he was younger, and he lived that lifestyle. But through experience, he was able to come out of it and be who he is today. So it's pretty incredible if you learn about his story and where he comes from, to see where he is now. It's pretty remarkable.
Which is nuts, because you would feel that stereotypically if someone had that type of background, well, it's not everyone that can make it out like he did. But I mean, You would want to think that the numbers would show that if you had that harsh of a background, probably in and out of the foster care system, if that, your chances of a bright future aren't bright.
Right.
So, but that's nuts. But that goes into Quiet Trip, and he's touching on having a rough come up, losing people to gunfire. Mm-hmm. And there was a line where he's talking about, basically the poor robbing the poor, like the robber robbing the robber. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, that's actually I think of just a neighborhood where, there's a lot of stuff going on and you're robbing a house that probably doesn't have much to offer as it is. Mm-hmm. And, in a fabricated story, they probably just robbed somebody, but it's just that they never had they don't have much either.
Right.
And and it kind of feeds off of experience of he's seen a lot of shit, but the experience turned him from a squire to a sire. So I thought that was really cool, really deep. Yeah,
this is a great song. I love the features from Portugal the Man and Last Artful Dodger. They're both on a few of these tracks. If you don't know Last Artful Dodger, you should definitely look her up. She's super dope. She's a rapper and singer. I actually saw her live in 2017 at the 10-year anniversary of Below the Heavens. They did a live show, and she opened up for Blue in Exile. And she's incredible. You should definitely listen to her solo stuff. But she's been featured with Anderson .Paak and some other artists. So she's on the come up. She's from Portland. So is Portugal the Man. That's a folk indie rock band, and they're from Portland as well. But I thought they melded really well with Black Thought. I mean, they sound like good songs. You know what I mean? With hooks and things like that. I enjoyed these songs with them. But one of my favorite lines from this song is, "I don't want to smile for the camera. I just want to see my fam rise. I can feel when a man lies, trying to grow old and wise. And I'm still fly like airlines, stay sharp like samurais." He's not there to be in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. And Black Thought's pretty, he's not in the limelight. He stays pretty hidden. Mm-hmm. Yes, he's on the Tonight Show, but he rarely does interviews. You won't see him caught up in any TMZ videos or anything like that.
No.
He's pretty quiet. And I think he really means those lines. He just wants to see his fam rise. He has kids, he has a wife. I'm sure by fam he means people in his circle, like other artists, the Roots. He's focused on that. He's not focused on being in the limelight, mm-hmm. which he could. He's in that position. He could try to be in the limelight all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like him though, it's cool. I don't know. I like that he's kind of I'm just here to do my thing and that's about it.
Right.
Not do anything extra.
Yeah, he's very blue collar. Shows up, does the job, goes home. Great song. And then the next song, which also features Last Artful Dodger and Portugal the Man, Nature of the Beast. And this one's it's got this indie rock feel to it.
What'd you think of the singing?
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Black Thought having a melody and singing for a bit. I thought it was a good change of pace from just barring out. Mm-hmm. And he did it well. I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah, I like when I don't know. I feel like when some artists using this as an example, when you kind of just toe the water, like you're not going in this full on song of singing and trying something completely crazy. But I mean, it's like a 3-minute track. The verses are pretty short.
Right.
And it has a lot of like pre-choruses and stuff like that. But also, I think what helps it too is that the content within this song was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So for this one, I didn't really take notes. So as Matt said, it's called Nature the Beast. But I pulled out for me at least, I pulled out things that resonated with me. So like the line, like sheep to the slaughter. That was one. If the right amount of likes and follows can make me less hollow, I somehow be more complete. And why won't anyone take the lead? And so with those 3 different lines, you kind of like, I work with a lot of youth that are very much into likes, follows, the amount of friends that they have. I have one kid that is experiencing some forms of cyberbullying, but like not really taking initiative to privatize their profile. And there's more an incentive for them to have the likes, have the friends than it is to protect themselves, which I think is really interesting. So it's like when Black Thought is talking about, I'd somehow be more complete and all these likes and follows makes me less hollow. Like it kind of does. It's chipping away at someone's character and their humanity for something else that like ultimately doesn't matter. All these likes and stuff, they don't matter.
Those are great points.
And when you talk about like sheep to the slaughter, like it's just following. I mean, I just think of being on social media all day, just scrolling. We're waiting for someone else's validation, their acknowledgement, someone else to do something instead of taking it on and taking the initiative ourselves. And that's where to follow up with why won't anyone take the lead? And it's like, because we're just like someone else. I'm not confident in myself, but what Matt's doing looks good. So if he's doing that, it seems confident, then I can't really make a mistake doing that. And I think at the end, it makes me think of all the fakeness in the world and how people seek acceptance from others. But like, why is that? And I think it's in the name of the title, like it's the nature of the beast. We're we follow, we're social beings.
Yeah, the beast today is social media and living online and what that does to us as humans, which, I don't think our brains are caught up with technology. I don't think we are capable of living in this environment that we're in currently. It's just not, our brains aren't able to process this much information. It's too much thrown at us every day. Being on the internet and having access to so many people and so much information, I think it overwhelms, and I think people get lost in it really easily. It's easy to lose yourself on the internet.
And I think it's easy, to build on what you're saying, the biggest issue is that people are selective. So, I mean, if you're hanging out with someone and like, I'm trying to think of one of the latest things, like, if you don't know what Irish twins are, or like if you don't know the fires that are happening around you, or just random things that are like current, where I guess like, let's not going in depth in politics, but like not being aware of even the biggest things that are happening, of like, okay, there was a fly that landed on Mike Pence's head. Oh, what's all this about a fly? Like not even knowing the basic stuff that's out there and just being selective of like, well, I like nature and hikes, so this is the only thing I look up. Or I really like cartoons and comics and anime, so that's all I look into, to the point where you shut everything else off.
Right.
And I think that's part of the nature of the beast too, is just like sticking to what makes you feel comfortable and not wanting to go out of that comfort zone. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of good things, and you're right that this is a short song, but there's a lot of stuff happening here.
It makes you think about a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, even the hook or the bridge is everybody's caught up trying to find living with our guards up all the time, and breaking through it all never crossed our minds, and greatness is withering on the vine.
And I feel like for me, I look at with our guards up as like not, It's like, well, no, I guess that is what it means. It's protecting ourselves by shoveling everything else out and away. I don't want to hear about what Biden's talking about. I don't want to hear about what Trump's doing. I'm just not even going to vote because it doesn't affect me anyways. Right. Where you got your guards up about like how anxious that makes you, but you're not even taking the time to just look. I don't know. There's something I looked up a couple weeks ago. It took me 5 minutes and I felt pretty knowledgeable about it afterwards.
So what you're saying is the internet, you're able to access this information on the internet and it adds value because you can get to it right away. You have instant access to information.
That's what I'm saying in theory. Like we are in this information age where like you can access anything at any time, but I feel like if it makes you uncomfortable, you build your wall up and stay comfortable with it, with what you know.
I do think there's repercussions to that.
Absolutely.
Having that much access that quickly, our attention spans are dwindling, and I think reality becomes less important. And being in the virtual world is starting to gain more significance in young people's lives, where if I have this many followers, that means a lot more than my credit score or
it is a credit score.
Or my job or, whatever,
It's a credit score, dude. That's a great way to put it. Like that's your clout. If you have all these friends, then that means you're a cool dude. Even if it's all these people from another country that don't even understand what you're saying or whatever, like it's still like I have this, you don't. Oh, you only have 400 friends? What's wrong with you?
Right.
So
and I'm dreading the day when employers are going to be looking at, people are interviewing, they're going to look at their follower counts and be like, look, sorry, you're a couple hundred short of what the typical people we hire for this job. Sorry.
Do you watch Black Mirror?
I have, yeah. I've seen
the seen that episode? It's that, it has to do with like that social currency.
Right, yeah. I saw that one.
Yeah, that's nuts. But it doesn't feel too out of, when you first watch that episode, you're like, holy shit, that's crazy. But then you start thinking about, like, that's not like, there's a few Black Mirror episodes like that doesn't sound too far out of the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're on that path.
Oh yeah,
I definitely agree with that. So yeah, dope song. I'm interested in what you think about the sound of this song. Like, did you enjoy the sound of it or the way it was structured?
Yeah, we're still on the one where the nature of the beast, right? Yeah, the singing I kind of was like welcome to it, but I like the slow pace of the track.
Yeah.
Kind of just like I don't know. I don't know if I imagine it at like seeing it live, and I
think seeing it live would have a lot more impact.
I think it would too. Like I just kind of think of just this right before the intermission or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what this is in this album. It's an intermission that kind of slow things down a bit before we come back into some more hard tracks.
Damn, I didn't mean to relate it directly like that, but you're right. It is like right in the middle of the album.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's weird, ever since we started doing this, I am kind of starting to think of like each album as a show. Mm-hmm. And like this one can work either way, where it's like, this is, hey, you play this song, it's like, okay, we're going to take 15, we'll be right back. Or you come back, am I going to come back juiced or I'm not sure? And then it kind of mellows you out and it's like, all right, we're going to the second act. This is how I want to start you off. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely mellows you down.
So after that, we go into We Could Be Good, United, featuring C.S. Armstrong and Ocean. So it's a relationship song, which I enjoy. I think Black Thought does love songs really well. Mm-hmm. Just taking from his songs he's done with the Roots. But this is necessarily it is a love song, but it's more about the trials and tribulations of being in a relationship with someone.
What I really like about these types of songs from artists that are generally older is that I feel like they take a perspective of being in a long-term relationship.
Right. He's married and has kids, so he's gone through a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like, being 32, like that's, and in a long-term relationship, like I resonate more with these than, okay, you went out with someone, got laid, got in an argument, whatever, you dated for 2 weeks and now it's over. Like,
it's been a long time since I've done that. You can easily move on to the next one and it's no big deal.
Yeah, because like I'm not saying that those are bad songs, I just don't relate to them. So being 32 and having dated my girlfriend for 12 years now. Like,
yeah,
I feel that.
It's a dope song. It's not my favorite on the album, but I did take a lot from it. I did like his wisdom that he imparts on it. He says, "No time to waste on the outside of our divine embrace because of my mistakes. Sometimes we overcomplicate or undercompensate. I try to keep it namaste, but you've just got complaints." So, I like what he's saying. He's saying, I've made mistakes, being with you, but sometimes we overcomplicate things, which we do all the time. Everyone does that. Or we undercompensate. We don't think enough of the other person. We don't have enough empathy. And then, but overall, he wants to keep peace. He doesn't want to fight.
Yeah.
But if the other person is on the same level, if they're not trying to keep the peace, then you almost match them. You match their energy, even if you don't want to. It just kind of happens.
I feel like going off of that, like, it's also not. I guess I can see the whole, like, if someone's not on the same level, but then you wouldn't be with them for so long if you were just completely incompatible.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that. Yeah, but there's at times you're going to be not on the same level.
No, that's true. Yeah. And so, but with that, like, there's a sense in this song that it's you want to throw in the towel and just give it up.
Right.
But then you know that that's not the answer. Like, this is something. It's a problem, but it's a fixable one. It just takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But to give up would just be I'm going to experience this again. I'm more than likely going to experience the same thing with someone else. And am I just going to keep running away from this? Mm-hmm. And so I would want to say that it's not necessarily settling at all, but it's like you got to put the egos to the side and just resolve it. So, and then we could be good, united. Right.
Yeah, so. I think what I really took away from the song is Black Thought taking responsibility for his place in the relationship, his actions, and he's not putting blame on the other person and saying, "You did this to me." Mm-hmm. He's saying, "No, this is the issues that I need to work on and that's we're going through."
And that's what you get from the couple in the beginning, because the girl is like, "Yo, like, you're always gone. You're on social media. You're not paying attention to me." And dude's just brushing it all off. Like, "I'm here right now. I'm here right now."
Right.
And that's probably like the worst thing that you could say to someone is like, it's invalidating.
Zero empathy.
Zero empathy. You're invalidating what they're actually saying and just brushing it and be like, "Well, I'm here now, so you can shut up now." Basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah. No, it's a great song. I think for me, it's just after I heard it the first couple of times, like, okay, like, it's a cool song, but you know what I mean? It's not one of the other banger tracks that I want to keep listening to over and over.
No, it's definitely not one that's on repeat, but I like its place in the album. Did you?
No, I think it's a great place for it. Yeah, I wouldn't put it anywhere else.
Does it do anything for you?
It does, because there's a lot of wisdom in it. You know what I mean? I can relate to it, and I think Black Thought is coming from definitely a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. So I like the messages in it. It's just not my favorite song.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think going back to when we were talking about Nature of the Beast and Nature of the Beast, and how it's like, is that before or after you come back from the show? And I think it can kind of go either way. But I was thinking, because these next couple tracks, as we've done two of them and going into Stakem, like, they are pretty low key and mellow. They're not too much into that banger realm.
Right.
So I'm not really sure where I would place that. I was trying to think about that again. But Stakem, like, it starts off with, I love Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. Since first, I don't know. Since
who doesn't?
I know you can't not. But he basically opens this track with Dave Chappelle, and he's talking about, like, the plight of black people, in a sense of, like, we came along, we put all our work in, we did all this and that, and then we were captured, we freed ourselves, and it's ironic, but now that we're being perceived as lazy. But then, like, the thing to really get under the skins of white people is just to kneel for the flag. And there's just so much conundrum everything, because it's like, putting in work to help build your country, and then you're protesting certain aspects of it and then losing kind of respect for it and like whatever. But then I don't know how I want to tie this track into that. There's a couple different ways. And I don't know if it's I put down like I think of the chips being against you and like you're going to lose despite having the crown, being the incumbent.
I think for me, both of their verses, it's a lot of proving people wrong. It's proving on a bigger scale, it's proving white people wrong. It's proving America wrong, that we have value and we belong here and I have a purpose and I am worthy. It's a lot of I should have failed, but I didn't. I overcame a lot to get where I am.
And that's where I think that's kind of going back a couple tracks ago of like, we used to be kings and you really feel like I'm going to lose, but I've been set up to win for a long time, but I'm not, that's not what's going to happen. And I like his line to go from a showman to a shaman is not common. Mm-hmm. And to kind of fall from that grace it's not really going to happen. Is that what I wanted to say?
Well, for me, going from a showman to a shaman means he's going from an entertainer to a person with wisdom, and is becoming more of a spiritual leader than just an entertainer. Yeah. So he's adding value. He has a lot more depth to him, but it's not common, especially in the entertainment world. That's not common.
Yeah, that's what's up.
I thought Schoolboy Q killed his verse.
You think so?
I liked it. I liked his flow, his cadence. He added a dark energy to it. I like how dark the song was.
I love the beat to this track.
Yeah.
But with Schoolboy Q in general, I've never really been a big fan. I think it's definitely one of those Black Thought effects where I really need to compose my lines because I'm on a song with Black Thought and I'm on his album. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really.
I liked his verse. He says, "Eye for an eye, gonna keep the tears rolling. I'm Beethoven to the bass swollen. Staring in the mirror, I was God's bonus. Yeah, I ain't asked for this shit. I was chose for this. Eye for an eye. I mean, he like teardrops. Like after you murder someone, you get the tattoos of tears. I'm Beethoven to the bass. So he's the Beethoven of hip hop bass. That hits hard." And he didn't ask to be in this position. He feels like he was chosen. Like God provided him with all these opportunities to be there. Mm-hmm. And he just, he accepts it.
And also didn't ask to be black in America either. He just was born into it and made.
Right. He didn't ask for all the shit I'm sure that he's seen when he was younger, but he was chosen to go through it.
Mm-hmm. Number 10, Thought Verse Everybody. It continues like that kind of deep thing.
Yeah, for me, I wrote down relentless. Just relentless bars on this whole song. Mm-hmm. He's going in on everybody.
There's a lot of like really good questions too. And I didn't write the line, but he's, asking why we fear DACA dreamers and not corporations. Mm-hmm. And I think he mentioned like BMW, Mercedes. He rhymed DACA with something else. Oh, with FEMA. I didn't rhyme it. But just like all these corporations that are like preying on people and are for profit, but like we're concerned about people coming into the country to better themselves. That would benefit the people, as opposed to like people that are just in it for themselves. That's what I mean to say. And yeah, there's a little bit to unpack on this one. I like the line, "Home is where the hatred lies, they taken lives, but everybody just so saved and sanctified." And that one was in sociology we talk about, social institutions of where we learn from. So that's examples being your home, your family, schools, churches, other forums where like you congregate with people that are a big part of your life. And so like the hatred starts at home. It really does. Like you're not born hateful. You learn it from something, from somebody, and it's reinforced in certain ways.
Right.
And when he's talking about being but everybody just so saved and sanctified. There's people that like, hey, I'm with the good book. Like, there's not a bad bone in my body. But then they're doing things that
they almost hide behind.
They hide behind the book,
or
and use it to justify their actions.
Right.
And I felt like that line was just really, it was a deep one. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't know. Great men chose the paper mate pen or state pen. This is another line that I liked.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines on this song is, I hear police discussing whether to try and kill us all. I question if that'd matter. Life is like a tree that falls in the woods, even with iPhone footage to see it fall. So basically referencing all the shit that's been happening, with police brutality and murder. It's even if it's filmed,
are people seeing it?
Is justice being served? Are people paying attention? Are people really believing it, or are they seeing it?
Yeah.
Life is like a tree that falls. If you're not there to see it fall, you don't know and you're not aware. But now that we have the internet and technology, we can film that tree fall, but people still aren't paying attention.
And then he also ties in how people will like blatantly lie, and then you can look those things up and be like, well, we fact check that, that's not true. But then it's still like, no, that's still a lie, despite whatever you said. That's fake news. Don't believe that. And it's kind of something that's kind of hit home in the last, I want to say for me, like the last 2 or 3 months, where like you have people telling you, like trying to appear more woke than just because they're finding these articles that you don't typically see that aren't immediately in your face. And it's just like, well, no, these are the real things. But then fact checkers come in and discredit that. And it's just like, well, who are the fact checkers though? Who's to tell me that what I found was wrong? You got to look at who these people are. Right. And, we talked about that in one of my classes, where it's like, it's important to see the sources that you're getting stuff from, for
right.
sure, to see what their influences are. I got just like, we got some people outside just making like, trying to get our attention or some shit.
Yeah, they're trying to make faces at us.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Super weird. Hopefully they don't come into the door though, because I'm not trying to deal with this shit. But
yeah. So moving on to Ghetto Boys and Girls Fuel interlude. Yeah, I thought this was a dope interlude. It definitely, leads you into the next song really well. But I just love his lines on this. He says, "Ayo, and then they convince us to adopt lies till the stock rise, while the vultures try and push the culture counterclockwise. Got us licking shots at one another for Popeyes. N-words rock climb, try and come out on the top side. I mean, the top of the food chain, fuck a top 5. So, I mean, those are really powerful lines for an interlude, too. Mm-hmm. It's, you got vultures out there who are culture vultures, that they call them. People who take advantage of the culture and use it to gain, money or fame or whatever. And you see that happen all the time in hip hop. It's been happening forever. It's nothing new. I think it's happening more now, but it's been around since, Vanilla Ice came in, and, other artists like that may not have necessarily been truly part of the culture, but came in and were opportunistic and took advantage and came out successful.
I think one of the things of culture vulture that bothers me the most is like how hip hop and rap is really like demonized and like, oh, this is the devil's music, or this is like
street
these
music.
People. Yeah, this is what these people do. But then like years pass and then they start rapping in like McDonald's commercials and stuff like that. And it's in a very like, hey, we said that this is really bad a while back, which you guys probably forgot. But like, here we are bringing it back, turning back the clock, as he says in the song, and we're making it more appropriate. This is how it could be.
It's being taken advantage of on all sides. Like even just now with the Democrats using rap and hip hop to get, those votes from those people. it's very much the same thing. They're taking advantage of the culture to gain what they want. They're not part of the culture. It wasn't like the Democratic Party has always been a part of hip hop, and they're just being opportunistic and using that for themselves. And it's interesting how many ways hip hop can be taken advantage of.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if you let the people that originated hold it, then it's bad. But if other people come in and take it over, then hey, let's show it how it could be. Let's paint this in a positive way. But it's like it was never negative though.
Right. Yeah. It was. Was never negative. It just got spun that way by other people.
Yeah.
And then I think once money got involved, it kind of took it to a different place. But yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's crazy how much you can get out of Black Thought's lines. Like just off of one line, you can go into a 30-minute conversation about something.
Oh yeah, technology, all sorts of stuff like we have. But yeah, like with Fuel, you kind of using all that stuff to propel him and forward. And I think a little bit of Ghetto Boys and Girls are like they're already living this lifestyle that whatever, but kind of keep your head up. Forget the other stuff I was going to say about that. But there's a part of the song I liked. Are the best years of my life behind or still ahead of me? And I thought that was a deep one because I think of movies like Coach Carter or Freedom Riders, stuff like that, where like you're looking at these kids in a very impoverished group, and a lot of that mindset of like, I'm not going to make it past this age, so I'm just going to do what I can. And you kind of like, because you're so used to this like toxic environment, and you look back, it's like, well, this is possibly the best years that I've ever had, and it isn't getting any better. I'm not getting any richer, and I'm getting more responsibilities. So the best years are probably behind me. So if this is what I'm looking for ahead of me, like, I don't really want to do this. But he taught in the last verse, he talks about the injustices, I think it was the second verse, of the legal system as a person of color, and just like how, kind of being overlooked or not really taken seriously, and just kind of, all right, it's just the same thing over again. It's not really.
I think he references his parents getting murdered and how they didn't get justice for that. This is a really deep song, I think, for Black Thought. It's very personal. He talks about he's vulnerable on this. He talks about reconciling with his grandmother and his brother, and saying, he says, I've always loved you, although that was really said aloud. So take forever, I guess, better late than never proud. So he's saying he didn't really speak to them, never really said I love you to his family, and now he's saying, what, I'm saying it now. So I thought that was really powerful. And then I love these lines later on. I mean, it's also really deep. He says, trying to change my skin color like a chameleon, but are my best years, you said that, my best years of life behind me are still ahead of me. What would I leave behind if I was over everything? The foundation of creation of a better me. So, I mean, it's crazy when you hear someone like that say, like, maybe at one point in his life, he was trying to change the color of his skin. He was trying to be someone else. He didn't want to be in his position or where he was in life. Would he leave? What would he leave behind if he left? If he, decided to end it? What would be his legacy or whatever? But then he says the foundation for creation of a better me. So he realizes there's a foundation there that he could build off of and become a better person.
And that's where we had the experience, the character, the confidence all come from of like, I need to take what I have and try to turn it into something
and use it as fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a really deep song. I love the song.
Yeah, I definitely need to hit that a few more times, but it's a really good song.
Yeah, also featuring The Last Artful Dodger and Portugal the Man. They did a lot of songs on this one together. Dope song. And then we go into the I'm Not Crazy outro.
I took the only thing I put down was, so when we introduced ourselves to the Europeans as human beings, they just didn't get it. And I felt like, there's a shorter verse right before that. And I think it's repeating some of what was in the first track.
Yes. Yeah. It's almost like a repetition of the first one.
And I thought that was like kind of going back into the, you're not really seeing me as an equal. And as I explained it, but then you still did what you want to do. You didn't get it. Like, you didn't get me. And it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's an overall message to, maybe that's how he feels, America or the people in charge don't get black people. They just they didn't get that they're just humans like the rest of us, or that we're brothers, like the Cain and Abel story. And you've been murdering us, and it hasn't been working out. It's not to the betterment of all of us. That might be taken a little bit too deep, but no, he does say some crazy stuff on this. He says, "A storm is forming to stand down, you. I'm warning you. Come to switch up the climate like global warming do. A man called Portugal go with the oracle. We move from metaphorical to historical." He's saying, he's the storm. He's gonna come in and fuck up the climate like global warming do. He's coming with Portugal the man, and they're gonna make a historical mark on music, and they're gonna leave their mark. So it's another one of those battle rap bars where he's staking his claim and knowing his place in hip hop.
Yeah, I'm wondering, maybe this is going too far, but I'm gonna go back to Cain and Abel real quick with the each one making sacrifices, one being favored over the other, one getting jealous of the other, murdering that one, and then the one that did the murder is being punished. And I'm wondering if, like, taking everything into context of, growing up here, whites being favored there. And one of the tracks, Black Thought brings up what the only difference between Black Thought and white is privilege, and says, fuck that. And just kind of this album referencing the differences and how your skin color can impact the way you grow up and your experiences and what you go through. I'm kind of wondering if Black Thought in a way could be Yahweh punishing Cain for Cain representing white people, Abel representing black people having, being kings in Africa or whatever in the past, and then being I don't know if jealousy would form in here, but like killing off black people, dominating them for 400 plus years or whatever.
Yeah.
Him coming in as Yahweh and like trying to bring everyone, the audience, into this path of wandering by dropping all this knowledge, kind of letting them know like, yeah, this is what we're going to take everything that we have and come up and become stronger than before. But just kind of like him punishing white people for what happened. But that might be too much of a I don't know. Maybe that's going too far.
I don't know. That could be right. He did say he's not human in one of his lines, so you could take that and run with it. You're like, okay, Black Thought's putting himself up here and he's looking down at Cain and Abel and punishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. Interesting take.
Yeah, possibility. But I mean, like we were kind of agreed, like I wouldn't say that it's a full, I agree that it's not necessarily a full-on concept album, but I like how it draws, and at least it makes me think of it. Maybe it could be like some form of concept too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put it past. I'm just not sold on it.
Right. So yeah, that's the end of the album. I think for me, I enjoyed this album much more as I listened to it more and more, and I think doing this podcast allowed me to enjoy it a lot more than if we weren't doing it for the podcast. Because I probably would have just listened to it a few times, like, oh, this is dope, and picked out a few of the songs that I really liked, and that would have been that. But having to sit down and dig deeper into this led me to a lot more value in this album. Because like you said in the very beginning about Black Thought, his bars are very intricate. You're not going to catch everything the first time. You got to sit and think about it. Think about what he's saying. And there's a lot of entendres in there. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this project. I do think he has a better project out there, coming up. I think he can do a better album. But for right now, this is dope. I really enjoyed it.
I agree with that. I think there's more to come. I mean, when you drop 3, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of his way of staying old fashioned, like combining being old fashioned, but then like the whole playlist era of like, all right, I'm not going to drop track after track every month, but I'll give you a short album of some good content every 6 months or so. I like that. I think that's a cool way of fitting.
And I like that he's working with one producer for each project. Even though none of them have really hit me hard with the production. I haven't been blown away yet. I haven't been amazed at the production.
Yeah.
It's all been secondary to his lyrics. Whereas I want them to be on even playing fields. I wanted him with some like stellar production that, matches his lyricism. Not to say, and Sean C and Salam Remy and Ninth Wonder are all amazing producers. And we haven't even talked about Sean C yet, but they're all incredible producers who have worked with the top artists in the game. But I don't know. I think he could get better production for him. And maybe he has to work with Questlove. I don't know.
I mean, I thought it was all right. I didn't have a problem with it. I think I'm more impressed by the method. So like I was saying, if a lot of these artists are just dropping track after track, the Baby's going to be forgettable. Like I already don't even remember Blame It On Baby. I can't name you 3 of the tracks on there. I can tell you I like the one with Ashanti, but that's about it. But I mean, with Streams of Thought though, I do like this format of like, I've been wanting to hear, people I've been listening to back in the day. Like, I'm really wanting to hear like a new Ludacris album. I'm excited for the new Busta Rhymes album that is dropping. But like, if some of my people that I liked listening to growing up kind of did it the way that he's doing it, where it's like production that fits, but it's not on the caliber of like a really in-depth, full-length album, I like this. I'm down for that. But I definitely hear you on like actually, no, that's what I'm saying is like, I think that's why it's not up to par for you, because it's just, I'm going to put out some small projects here and there just to have people hear me and be known and whatnot. So I like it. Yeah.
No, it's dope. I'm excited for what he puts out next. I can't remember if I heard, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be another Roots album soon. I've heard they've been working on it. So I'm excited for that. But I am excited for Black Thought to keep doing these. I hope it doesn't end as a trilogy. I hope he keeps it going.
Do you see, like, I'm going to go back to the Baby again, when we were like, yeah, dude, this isn't going to work. You're eventually going to just flame out. If Black Thought were to continue on with Streams of Thought 4, 5, 6, they stay around the same length, maybe a little bit shorter. Do you think he fizzles out, or do you feel like he kind of stays on an even plane?
In terms of his ability to make music?
No. I wouldn't say in terms of making music, but I just think of like longevity. Kind of like we're looking at DaBaby. It's like, okay, we're going to forget about him pretty soon. But if Black Thought were to keep doing these projects, do you feel like
we'll never forget about Black Thought? He's a legacy act. He's in a legendary status in hip hop. So he'll never fade out. I mean, yes, there are other legends that put out music that aren't necessarily relevant or we don't really pay attention to them. But I just think Black Thought's on that level of, he won't fade out. As long as he puts out a project, people will pay attention. I think if you're a hip hop head and you like this type of hip hop, you will listen to this type of music. I think he's earned that.
Oh yeah, I think he's definitely earned that with the people that have been with him for a long time. I'm kind of curious, like what younger people think of him. I'm curious, like
it was funny when last week when we had your brother on the podcast, and I asked him, have you heard of the Roots? And he had no idea what the Roots were, and I was like, what?
No idea. But it's
like that blows my mind. Yeah, that's crazy, because if someone was making rock music, there's no way they don't know about like one of the biggest rock bands ever in that genre. They do their homework and they know about that rock band. You know what I mean? In hip hop, it's weird. It's like younger people don't feel the need to go back and research. They only need to pay attention to what's hot now. They don't need to know the history. They don't need to know who Rakim is to do what they do.
There's so many thoughts on that because I feel like a lot of people, maybe this is what's up. When it comes to rock, there's so many people that will name the same couple bands. I'm not too big into rock, but the things I think of, like the Rolling Stones, I think of Van Halen, I think of...
I think you could say the same about hip-hop, though. People name the same top 5. Biggie, Tupac, Nas, Jay-Z, Eminem. Everyone says the same thing.
But that's my point, though, is that like across generations with rock, people will keep telling you the same bands. I don't
know about that.
I think with hip-hop, people are going to tell you from the decade that it was big for them. No. So for the 90s...
I guarantee your brother has Eminem, Nas, Jay-Z in the top 5. Just because he knows that they belong there.
Hip-hop is also not as old as rock and roll, though, too.
Right, which that means it should be easier to know the history. And know.
It should be, but I feel like I'm going to stick with those guns, though, of like there's people that in rock and roll that have stuck with the same bands over and over and over, where like with hip hop, people are more likely to get in with what's hot. Like if I'm thinking that that hip hop was born in the 80s or so, and then really like for our generation got really big in the 90s, he was born in the 90s. He's not going to know anybody before then because like I'm not talking about Big Daddy Kane or Rakim or anything like that. That's a personal thing. I'm not. I'm aware of them, but I'm not talking about them. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about what was big for me when I was in high school. He's talking about who was big for him in high school. So like, while he was in high school, as he mentioned, he like Lil Wayne and I forget the other person that he mentioned, but like, that's what was hot. And also too, like the times are different. So like I'd put money that we're hearing more and it's more available of these artists now than it was then, but that doesn't help my argument. But if there's a more of an influx of recent artists, then you're not really worried about the past ones because they're not hitting as hard as the current ones.
I don't know. I think it has to do with the nature of hip hop, of being a young man's game, and always hip hop's more competitive. So if it's more competitive, you don't want your fans to know about the older generation, older artists. Like, no, I'm the new thing. I'm the hottest. I'm the best. So it's a different mentality. Whereas rock and punk, if you go to a punk show, you go to a rock show, the band that you're going to see is going to be wearing a band shirt from a previous band from years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going to be repping that band because that band influenced them. In hip hop, you don't see the Baby wearing a Ludacris shirt.
And you're not going to.
Right. Because they're like, that's not my brand. I want to promote my brand because I'm about me. Mm-hmm. I think that's the difference where rock and punk is like, I want to represent the bands that I listened to in high school, and I want everyone else to know those bands too. And it's not competitive. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to take their spot on the top 5 rock bands ever. You know what I mean? It's not that mentality. It's different. I don't know. It's a different culture.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. I just think it's a different culture and why. Because, I mean, even some current hip hop rappers, like, they don't know a lot of the older people, which is interesting. So,
for me, though, if I'm going to be an artist in a certain area, a certain segment, I want to know the history. I want to know where it started, how it came to be, who are the top artists, who are the lesser art. Like, I'm going to study it. Because if you only pay attention to the current climate, you're not getting a full picture of the music. You don't know what came before it, so you even know how it got to where it came.
I don't disagree with you at all, and that makes a bunch of sense. But remember, because we were talking about in either the baby's thing, we were talking about longevity, and it's like none of these people in the Freshman XXL cover, how all these people sound the same, and it's because it's what's hot. Like, no one is going to go back to back in the day because they want to do what's selling right now. And so to kind of go into what you were saying too, if like that's definitely an incentive to stick with what is hot right now with what's good, because that's back then and we're not listening to that right now. So I'm wondering if that's why that we don't hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's all speculation. Yeah.
I think it's just the nature of hip hop today and the current climate of churning and burning. You know, we need to go to a hot rapper right now, and then as soon as they're not hot, we're on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just constant, you know, new shit, and I could see how younger people would just be too overwhelmed to even go and dig to the past because they'll miss the music that's coming out that week. There's gonna be 10 albums dropping.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I don't have time to go and dig into the archives.
And it kind of relates to video games and stuff like that too, because, you know, when we talk about tracks that like, okay, this beat, it was good in the 90s, but it won't fly here. Or like, it still sounds good today, but it won't really fly. A lot of kids are like looking at Mario or like Space Invaders. We're like, those are great and classic games, but because of the graphics, I won't even fuck with that game. It's too old.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's like, I'm not even gonna bother playing it just because of how it looks, despite it actually being a fun game.
It's outdated. Like, I'm gonna play Halo.
It's not even
Halo 18.
No, Call of Duty. Whatever they're on.
I'm gonna play Halo 18.
But with that said, back to Black Thought. Sean C's a dope producer. He's worked with Jay-Z. Sean C.
What did I say? Sean T. You said
Sean C. He's worked with, you know, Jay-Z and a bunch of other rappers. You know, he's been around for a long time. So yeah, he's a dope producer. I thought he did really well in this project. It's different. It doesn't sound like a lot of other projects out there.
I didn't have any. I liked the production. I didn't think there was anything up with it. But
yeah, I enjoyed it.
I just feel like there was something, like you were saying, that something was missing from it though.
Yeah. I just think it could have been a little bit more fleshed out. I don't know. It's a good question. But it was dope. Like, I enjoyed listening to all of it. And I'll definitely revisit it. It's not like a one and done project for me.
We got to figure out what was missing for you, Matthew. I'm concerned.
Maybe I'll figure that later on, and then I'll revisit it on this podcast.
We'll do another episode.
Well, yeah, that's our rap thoughts on Black Thought, Streams of Thought.
Cain and Abel.
Volume 3, Cain and Abel, with your hosts, Brandon and Matt.
What up?
And we'll catch you guys next week. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Hit us up. YouTube. You can watch video clips of us on there in the flesh. You can also listen to full episodes on YouTube if that's your jam. And we'll see you guys later.
For us it's night, so have a great night.
Peace.